Okay. Hello, everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending our joint webinar with MTS today. Just a little background on this webinar and why we're doing it. One of our priorities here at LeaseTeam is to always be looking for ways to integrate and partner with other solution providers that may help improve our customers' processes and add efficiency, because we realize that ultimately translates to our customers being able to provide better customer experiences for their clients. And so we're very excited to introduce one of these potential partners in MTS. So I'm just going to go ahead with that and turn it over to John Enning.
Thank you, Roxana. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our joint webinar today. MTS is thrilled with the partnership with LeaseTeam, and we're excited to share with you what we're doing in the equipment finance and leasing space. To give an overview, if you're not familiar with our company, we're MTS Software Solutions, and what we seek to do is provide technology services that simplify, streamline, and accelerate document and data-driven processes. And so we appreciate your time today and the opportunity to tell you about IntellaLease and how it works. So you can see some of our core expertises up on the screen here, and the fact that we are a ELFA member, which demonstrates our commitment to the equipment finance industry. So my name is John Enning. I'm the VP of Marketing, and I'm joined today by Ted Stocklin. And you'll hear from Ted and I throughout the webinar on a couple of different things. And moving along to the next slide, kind of give you an overview of the webinar today. So we've kind of gone over somewhat of the introductions, and we'll transition to why credit application acceleration, why is it important, and how can it impact your organization. Then we'll take a quick look at IntellaLease and demonstrate some of the functionality and some graphic slides that show you how it works. And then we'll transition to a demo, which will be delivered by our Chief Technology Officer, Bhavik Patel, who you'll hear from in a little bit. We'll leave some time for Q&A, and then we will wrap up. So why credit application acceleration? Well, as this slide attempts to indicate, there are a number of elements of the credit application process today that are complicated. And in your organization, it's important to consider kind of what happens once those credit applications enter the organization. Are they being printed and stacked on the desk in a first in, first out kind of method? Are folks keying data from those printed pages into the lease origination system, in this case, a LeaseTeam product, maybe Aspire? Or is it kind of a little bit more refined than that, where they're exercising this stare and compare method that you see the credit analyst straining their neck to achieve, where the credit application is on one screen, the LOS is on another, and they're copying and pasting and keying data and confirming that the data is accurate by doing that back and forth method. And then what happens afterwards? How is that data being treated once the application comes into the organization? So Ted, is there anything that you want to add here as far as the credit application entry process today?
No, John, not yet. I think when we get into the 4 or 5 slides that follow this that support this slide, I'll talk a little bit.
Great. So one of the reasons that we see a value in automating credit application entry is the fact that it's labor intensive and error prone. So we all know that manual data entry is costly, it's time intensive, and it's prone to data entry errors. And so one of the ways that we seek to overcome those challenges is by automating some of that work, and we'll see more about how that's performed in subsequent slides and in the demo. Another question to ask, you can see our credit analysts straining their neck there in the background, but when volumes peak, how do you address those peaks in volume? So are you required to pull staff or personnel from other departments who may be higher value personnel to perform that data entry? Maybe a sales manager, maybe a VP of credit. If that's the case, then you know that you're adding cost to the per application process. And because of the volumes are uncertain and sometimes the productivity is uncertain, we know that people are unpredictable. They may be out on vacation, they may be out sick. You don't know kind of what your resources are going to be necessarily day to day. There's unpredictability there, and there's uncertain productivity associated with those personnel. And so this is kind of a slide to demonstrate that IntellaLease is looking at those folks as slackers. Another challenge with credit application entry today is the lack of visibility. So do you know the time that it takes from when an application enters the organization through when that credit decision is rendered? Do you know the processing cost per application? And if there are different channels or if there are different partnerships that you have, how do those costs vary across the different types? Do you know operator performance metrics, such as how many applications that a specific processor or operator can get through in a given time? And do you think or do you know if there are potentially deals being left on the desk because of those productivity issues that we mentioned earlier? Another way we seek to improve the process as it exists today is to quicken the response time. And what complicated processes often lead to are slower response times, and what slower response times often lead to are frustrated customers. And so as you can see on this slide, you have a vendor who's calling in wanting to know the status of the application only to find out that there was missing information in that credit application. And so what we seek out to do is create those notifications and let folks know that information is missing earlier in the process, so that not only are we improving our response time and turn time, but we're also providing better customer service. And better customer service leads to stronger relationships, and stronger relationships should lead to more business.
It's a good point, John. And going back to something you said a moment ago on a previous slide, which talks to the potential for deals on the desk and lost business, what too often can happen, what we see is that by the time someone actually gets to that application and realize that the documentation or critical data is missing or incomplete, it's probably too late at that point to have won that business. So if we can give visibility to that sooner in the game, that can potentially lead to increased revenue and less deals on the desk.
Sure, and that kind of segues very well into this next slide, which asks the question, are your competitors getting back to your vendors before you? So if that turn time is such that you're getting back to a vendor who may have solicited quotations from several lessors and you've approved them, are you getting there too late because of too many touches and too long of a turn time?
Or human capital issues. 3 people didn't show up today in credit, and you know what, we're just getting to the credit apps, John, as fast as we can. We just didn't get to a couple critical ones fast enough.
Sure. So with that in mind, we propose a scenario here, and some of these metrics may be similar, they may be slightly different, but kind of bear with us here where we go through some of these numbers. So if you're an organization that receives 100 credit apps per day, and 50 of those credit apps are denied right away, you know that they're not credit worthy, and 50 of them are approved, you're still spending time and effort processing those 50 credit apps that are denied, and of course there's cost to that. And then of the 50% that may be approved, maybe you have a 60% book rate out of those approvals. That's leaving another 20% that are not booked. So 70% of the credit applications that are entering the organization are being processed, adding time and cost to the entire process, but are earning you no revenue, and increasing the per application processing cost for each one that comes in.
And you know, probably as much as any slide that you've shown so far, John, that one right there is really a great foundation for a lot of what we seek to deliver from a value proposition standpoint, you know, with the IntellaLease solution. And certainly we'll touch on that a lot more in the demo, as well as some upcoming slides.
Sure. So what is IntellaLease? IntellaLease combines state-of-the-art technologies to allow lessors, equipment finance organizations to process critical leasing and finance documents faster and more efficiently. And we do that by combining some of the technologies that you see there on the screen: intelligent capture, validation and automation, integration and access, and evaluation and analytics. And we've broken the application up into a number of modules. And I'll turn it over to Ted to talk a little bit about our document package receipt?
Sure. So today we're going to be focusing very heavily on what we refer to as credit application acceleration, but the IntellaLease platform delivers far more. And one of our secondary, huge areas of success so far with the product has been doc package receipt, particularly in the small ticket space. Some of the technologies that you're going to be seeing today, automated classification, document separation, automating the extraction of data from documents, doing validations, are all part and parcel to this solution. Again, our focus today is credit application acceleration, but for some folks where that may not be as big a fit, we want to make sure you realize that the solution delivers more than just that specific area of your business. Some other areas where we're seeing a great deal of interest and some beginning success include asset creation, its cousin, which we call it escrow disbursement, because they leverage a very, very similar technology that we've actually taken from a lot of success in just pure accounts payable automation, and that is the extraction and validation of line items, and in the case of escrow disbursement, invoices, line items from invoices as well as remittances, and doing some comparisons and reconciliations to the escrow disbursement process. And then finally, AP automation. We're helping organizations because of data that we're grabbing early in the process and validating. We're delivering that to AP. So just the sheer process of creating those funding invoice vouchers is highly streamlined and in many cases fully automated.
So back to the focus at hand, credit application acceleration. Let's take a look at some of the critical functionality and how it works. So we've broken the module out into some of these core functionalities that begin with capture. So what we do is automate the ingestion of emails and attachments. We see that credit applications are coming into the organization in one of two ways. With the information required to render a credit decision in the body of an email, or some kind of combination of in the body of the email with supporting documentation attached. And so what we do is we automate the ingestion of those emails and the attachments. And is there something that you wanted to add, Ted?
Yeah, and John, I think what's critical that we're finding here is that just this first step alone, that as Bhavic's going to show in a couple minutes, we fully automate. This piece becomes touchless. This goes away in your organization when you implement IntellaLease. This step alone on a per credit application level, John, can take several minutes just to get to a point where I can begin my data entry. So, even though we sometimes gloss over it, it's very critical to someone who's, fully manual right now in terms of the level of automation it delivers.
Sure. Thanks for adding that. The next step would be to classify. So what we can do is split the attachment from the email and then identify the critical documents within that attachment. As you see on the slide here, most often in the case of a credit application, it's going to be the application itself and maybe a sales order, but perhaps some other documentation that we can train to identify as well, depending on your business and your business process. The next step would be to extract the required fields from that email, from the credit application and or the sales order, or as I mentioned, some of the other supporting documentation, and lift that information automatically, whereas today it may require manual data entry.
And I think, John, what's important to note there is that if you look at, the classification and extraction, our key value proposition, John, is that what we're looking to deliver to the lease finance industry is a solution where it doesn't matter to us what that transaction looks like. You could have credit apps walk in the door with the critical data in the body of an email, or in attachments, or in some combination of the two. We're going to interrogate that data. We're going to recognize what those documents are, But then most importantly, we're then going to apply rules to pull all the critical data you need or as much as possible that's available to push that data up into Aspire to render that credit decision far more quickly than you're able to do so today in a some level of manual environment.
Right, and this next slide kind of shows some of the overlap between that extract step and the integrate step, which we call validate. And so it can as Ted was mentioning, it can take that the data from the email and the credit application and bounce it off of third-party applications, whether it be Aspire, whether it be some sort of CRM or data warehouse that you may have. And so as you can see on the slide, we were able to lift dealer information, but some of the address fields were missing. What we can do then is compare it against the data that you already have and use that to populate the form fields in IntellaLease to, again, streamline that data entry process.
And in one of the use cases that Bobak's going to show in a couple minutes, you're going to see exactly that type of functionality in terms of a dealer lookup. And in terms of use cases, you're going to see two different. One email only, and one email with attachments. So just in terms of getting everyone excited for what they really want to see, which is that demo coming up in a couple minutes.
Right, which we're getting really close to. So here you can see touchless processing where we were able to capture the critical fields without having to key any information in. As I mentioned earlier, we can use APIs for real-time data exchanges with the LOS or other line of business applications, portfolio management, accounting, data warehouse, etc. And then, of course, evaluate. So real-time reporting and operational statistics for actionable insights. So that kind of gets back to that visibility slide that we covered earlier, where you can have some reports and get some insights where you may not have them today. And thank you all of you for joining us on the 30th, the last day of the month. As you can see, the calendar reflects that. So in summary, what the credit application acceleration module attempts to do is to streamline the data entry into the LOS to expedite credit decisions and also lower the cost per application, improve productivity, make productivity more certain, and earn you more business. And all of that should lead to a competitive advantage. And with that, I will turn it over to Bhavik Patel, who's been anxious to grab the keyboard from me to show the demo.
Good afternoon, John, and good afternoon, everyone on the webinar today. My name is Bhavik Patel. I am excited, John, to show the demo. So today I'm going to show you a couple of the use cases and examples of how we accelerate credit applications in the process. So I just logged in to my portal. What you're seeing here is a dashboard. As Ted pointed out, many times in this integration, what we do is we capture the transactions that are coming in, and we typically associate the IntellaLease right with the mailboxes. So as emails are forwarded over to a mailbox, we are watching those mailboxes and bringing those transactions right into the system. And what that allows us to do is start keeping track of applications that are coming in as early as possible. As you can see, we are starting to track the credit application, start tracking the timing, when it came in, when it started working on it, and how long it took to process. So again, it's important to get that visibility, and that's what IntellaLease starts doing as soon as these transactions start coming in.
So Bob, could I use that metric to then gain reporting on what is my true time from receipt through decisioning?
That is exactly, Ted, what we are doing, and we'll be showing you some of the statistics and reporting dashboards later in the demo that will actually demonstrate that. Again, IntellaLease is fully browser-based, and it also has capability to assign roles to the system. So as long as you have access, depending on the type of access you have, you're going to have different modules available to you, as well as different roles within the system that are available to you. So let me, without getting into a lot of product detail, let me get into the nuts and bolts of the demo. We have two transactions today. First transaction that I'm going to show you is a credit app. As you know, in the credit industry or in leasing industry, we get transactions in all modes. We have transactions that are coming in where just the email body is there, and dealer has put in some information, and you're sort of trying to make a deciphering the information and trying to make that information into Aspire or any of your CRM systems and so on. So you have emails. Sometimes you have emails with attachments like credit app. And some of the information may be in an email, some of the information may be in a credit app. And what IntellaLease does in last 18 months of development, specifically in this product, where we have done is taking those scenarios and really allowing organization to prioritize where this information typically comes from, and using that information and populating necessary critical data points and making that available to a back-end system like Aspire to start rendering credit decisioning and start underwriting process on those leases. So what I'm going to show you first is the first of the use case is the email use case. In this scenario, what you're seeing is here's a dealer that has sent an email, and that's all we have. We have an email, we have information in that email that dealer has provided, and many of you get this today on a daily basis, especially on a small ticket items. Many times we see this where it's literally an email in a free form body, and we have put in a lot of effort, and this is where the product really focuses on capturing necessary data and populating that data into critical components that are needed to make render decisioning on that leasing. So as you can see here, you have email, document identified, and we talked about the classification aspect of it, and system has already grabbed this, classified this document as an email. It's deciphered the information. It has actually evaluated that email, content of the email, and based on that, I have number of different tabs here, very similar to what you see probably in Aspire today. Customer information, dealer information, equipment, guarantor, and we can add more tabs here. This is completely configurable and customizable as we implement with your organization. But what we have done, as you can see here, system has actually evaluated this transaction and pull necessary information right from the email information. What we have also done is not only we have pulled the information, we have, based on a certain information, looked up the rest of the information. So in this scenario, we know this came from an XYZ dealer, and based on that email, we can go and pull in to an Aspire database, your dealer database, and pull up all the dealer information from that database. And this is a very powerful tool because now you have some information that is being captured, and some information getting completed from your external systems. We can also hook up to your CRM system if that's what where you store some of your critical data for rendering credit decision. What you're also seeing is, as system is capturing and evaluating the information, it's already highlighting where I need to go. So as I'm talking and sort of slowing down my process, in this use case, I've already captured a lot of information as it's coming through, and where I don't have that information captured, what we use is OCR technology and capture that transaction information as easy as clicking. And Ted, you want to say something?
Yeah, so Bob, if I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this right now and I'm on the lease finance company side of the fence, what I'm seeing then is an email right now that I have to manually touch. Maybe I have some type of process built within Exchange or within Outlook, or maybe I've just hit the print button and print them all out. That goes away. And then by the time I open this screen, anything at the top that has a check, all of those fields related to customer, dealer, and guarantor are extracted and validated. So the only thing my credit people are touching is a couple of the fields related to equipment.
That is exactly right, Ted, and that's the point we are trying to make here. In today's environment, probably your operators are keying this information in Aspire. Your operators are maybe copy pasting this information. But if you look at it, by the time this email is open, we have already evaluated this email. We have extracted. We have looked up some of the critical data points, and literally, the information is captured and processed in a transaction. So within what typically can be taking minutes could be finished in seconds, and that's the whole underlying function of IntellaLease as we go through these credit applications. The other example I want to show you, it's not always that we get everything in an email. That would have been easy. Then I can focus on email. But there are transactions, and we have some of the customers, we not only have email, we have credit applications, we have sales memo, many other transactions. Transactions have many other attachments and other sort of documents associated with it, with very critical information. And therefore, what IntellaLease does is it also sort of uses this other documents that come along with an email for extraction and validation purposes. We have, in this scenario, I have an email and I have a credit app that was attached with this email. As you can see, what system has done, it has detached that credit application from an email. It actually processes that credit application, and then it's already extracted necessary information for customer on from a credit app. In this scenario specifically, well, the dealer lookup was again used using the email address where it came from, and so that's how we pulled up the dealer.
But in that case, though, Bob, I noticed you jumped to the email.
Mm-hmm. And that's good. The IntellaLease is designed not only for efficiently extracting the data, but also completing the data, Ted. And that's important because as you're going through, and I'll show you, as you're going through in this scenario where we may have information from some information in one document, and some of that information may be going to an email. So in this scenario, we have product manufacturer that was sent in an email, but all other information was in credit app. And what IntellaLease will do is it will capture this information regardless of where that information is within transaction.
So that's that interrogate capability where we don't care what the documents are. We're going to look at every bit of available documentation and information and mine every bit of information we can to complete that credit application.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you said, Ted, yes, that's exactly what it's doing, and it's going back and forth, and it's actually helping you. If you're reviewing these transactions and reviewing the information, it also helps you make sure that data is correct. We are in early stages, and I'm going to put a little caveat, but we see many times in this world, emails and credit apps are not always machine printed, right? So we are heavily invested in now, and in a future roadmap, and we are early in this, but what we see is handprint email or handprint credit apps do come in, and system also has capability. So in this scenario, I have a $420 that was sort of a requested payment, handwritten, and what we can also do is capture those handwritten amounts and transactions in there. And what that makes it is many times you may have email that is coming in which are machine printed, but then you have certain information that is coming in handprint. And again, I would put a little caveat that this is early in the process, but we understand that you not always have emails as machine printed, and therefore this technology is getting implemented as well. Again, further streamlining the process.
Yeah, and Bobak, I appreciate you showing that. I think that's going to be an important part of our roadmap because in those organizations that receive that attached credit application, we very rarely do we see where the volume or the percentage of handprint or machine print rises above the handprint. So I think it's going to give us as much lift as we already provide, Bobak. I think it's going to provide us with even greater lift in terms of the tools to minimize manual data entry and just quicken and hasten the pace of getting valid data up into Aspire.
Yeah, and as you look at it, many of these data are literally keyed into the system today. So if we have, in this example, I'm just showing you maybe 20 or 30 fields that we are extracting, across 4 tabs. I have some customers, where we're extracting even more. And again, the idea is to capture critical data points, make decisions, for missing data points. So if we have a critical guarantor information missing, and you want to show that to the, you want to sort of notify or make decisions early on. And therefore, if you have a social or date of birth not available to render a credit decision, well, you want to notify a dealer right away. And what this does is this can automate some of those tasks through an automated workflow, not requiring an operator to get to this leasing application in a workflow at some point, and then as they're keying in, realize, well, I have some critical data points missing. The system can do that for you, and that's where we see additional power, not only through a streamline, but also improving the customer service on these type of transactions. So with that said, what I also want to show you is we talked about reporting and dashboard.
You want to talk about any other tools in the roadmap? Not necessarily show them, Bobak, but other tools that are going to keep fingers off keyboards?
Certainly, Ted. I do want to talk about one of the tools that we are really looking in, and this is very much in a leasing industry. What I've seen, from traditional IDC environment, intelligent document capture underlying OCR or optical character machine print recognition technology, which is applied in many industries today, and it's been a very mature technology. In a leasing environment, many times what we see from one implementation to another implementation is that we don't know. We know what information we want to capture, for critical credit decisioning, but we don't know where they exist. We are not always getting nice credit apps filled out. We are not always getting everything in an email. There may be all over the place. So what we are doing is, in order to capture that information, apart from what you saw today, an automated extraction or what we call a rope in zone, where we are able to point and shoot and capture that information, we are also implementing speech recognition. And that we see as a very powerful tool along with this, where you are able to speak, and just like what you're doing with your phone today, if we can speak that, or if you have dealers calling in and speaking those terms, we can transcribe that and also capture that information. So again, the focus of IntellaLease is to streamline that credit rendering and efficiently process those transactions, and that's what we do.
I just want to, if I may jump in, if there are questions out there, we invite you to submit them using the GoToWebinar tool panel. You can type them in, and we'll try to get to some before the session is over.
Yeah, and keeping that watch in mind, what I want to show you is, again, all that is good, but we really want to make sure we are tracking and providing analytics around that. And then we have a whole host of dashboards and analytical tools that are built into the system. And I'm going to show you a few of the dashboards that are in the system. It's important to understand your throughputs and efficiency for gained through this process. And what I'm showing you is, for example, here we are showing review time by operator. So how long each operator is spending on a transaction, how many transactions are being processed, and how much time it's being taken by each operator. Again, many times in this scenario, the the documents that are captured may have multiple pages and multiple set of information that is getting captured. So we give you a lot of insight in terms of how this documents were processed within transactions, how these transactions actually went through the workflow, and all these reporting and dashboards allow you to really keep track of not your throughputs, but also your resource allocation. So if you're working on a different line of businesses, or if you're working on a different task within the system, you can manage that. We can also provide you your peaks and valleys and how transactions are coming in. So if you know based on the historical data, between end of the month, between 2 and 4, I have more credit apps coming in versus a certain other time of the year. You can evaluate that, and you can make your resource allocation appropriately. So again, there are a number of tools, both on our operations time as well as system. And I am running on a test system, so I don't have a whole server. But again, that's all part of the system, along with a very detailed audit reporting on the back end. And with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to John, completing the demo.
Sure. Thank you, Bhavik. And if you would pull up. Thank you. So I invite you to submit questions, again, using the GoToWebinar tools there. And we did get one question, and I'll let either Ted or Bhavik handle this one. But what if emails are sent to individual reps? How does that work?
Well, Bhavik, I'll start it and then you finish it. What we're seeing there, John, and that's a great question, it's very common where dealers and brokers get very comfortable working with particular credit reps and sales reps. And what we see there is that those emails get forwarded on to that dedicated email inbox or one of the inboxes. If there's multiple, that are broken out by business lines or types of business. So yeah, it's very possible that that you're going to see that in most organizations, and it hasn't been a challenge for us so far.
Yeah, I think that, and we have a couple implementations where emails, although sometimes dedicated email boxes are set up, emails do tend to come to a rep sometime. What we typically do is they're just getting forwarded over to a mailbox that we are watching, and essentially automating that process of ingestion and processing of those emails.
Okay, we have another question here about the results of machine print versus hand print.
Okay, Bhavik's in a good mood today, so I'm gonna kick this one off, and no, I'm actually going to set the expectation properly. The OCR technology that Bhavik talked about earlier is very mature, and the engines do a fantastic job with machine print. Hand print, on the other hand, a number of variables come into play. As we mentioned, we're testing. But I think one of the important things that everyone has to understand is, while there is going to be a lift, and that's what we're working on and testing right now with multiple engines, it is not nearly the same lift as machine print. So, good question. Bhavik, is there anything that you want to add to that?
I think you answered. Again, the IntellaLease, the focus is using not only one technology. We use intelligent, OCR technology, which is optical character recognition or machine print, but we also use a number of different technologies behind this to process and accelerate the transaction processing. And machine print, hand print, speech recognition, they're all part of it. Again, so as we use multiple technologies, it further gains us that productivity.
Yeah, our goal is just to continue to shorten that time required to get that data into lease origination and render that decision.
How does system work? So one of the questions we have is, how does system recognize the associate documents attachment, and how does it know it's credit app versus
sales order, for example.
Yeah. So I will say, and that's again some of the technology we are using, which are groundbreaking technology. What we do is, as each transaction that is processed in, we are evaluating the content of the transaction. And we have a library that is built for different types of documents. So as system is doing the recognition on it, it matches up against those libraries that we have built, and it knows this is an email, this is a credit application, this is a sales order or an invoice, and so on. So when those transactions come into your queue, many times they're already classified. We call it classified in a technology term, but essentially they're already defined and identified. And once we know that, we know what to extract from those transactions.
All right.
The one thing, Bhavik, I'd want to add to that, and that's very important, particularly if anyone out there has had any experience with the technology and the headaches associated with the ongoing maintenance with templates, is that it's critical to walk away knowing that templates are not used here, whether it be for classification of the various critical doc types or the data extraction from the specific business documents. Templates are not employed, and clearly, if you look at the work that Bhavik and his team have done just around a free-form email, that's the most clear example of just how powerful the technology is, because there's really no more free-form a document type or an information type than the email. So
and I think, and that's where a lot of resources have gone into really, we are not talking about document extraction where we know the zones or we know what we are extracting. We are actually evaluating the content, and based on a content and relativity to associated data within that content, and that's what really is deciphering and capturing the critical fields for the transaction. And it's that's a very good point, Ted. One more point I want to add is all of this data gets fed into Aspire in real time. So as soon as we have this information, it gets fed into Aspire, and it's available in your line of business. What you're seeing right now on all your Aspire screens, this information, as it's captured, is getting pushed into it, and therefore it's available to start your processing for credit decisioning or underwriting in the back end.
And I think that's an excellent point to finish up on, and hand back the presentation over to Roxanne, and we can wrap up.
I think she can speak.
So Roxanne, if you're there.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to take a second to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. And I wanted to let everyone know that MTS will be participating at our users conference. They will be be part of a session as well as having a vendor booth. So that would be a great opportunity to learn more about their solutions, including their document package receipt and asset creation automation modules. So if you haven't signed up for the conference yet, now would be an excellent time to do that before the early bird rates expire. And as always with the users conference, if you want to schedule ahead of time to talk with somebody at MTS or anybody at LeaseTeam, please feel free to start sending us emails and scheduling those appointments ahead of time so we can ensure that you have those conversations. And with that, I just want to thank everybody again for attending and thank MTS for that presentation. It was very insightful.
All right. Thank you, Roxana. We appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to seeing you in Omaha in June. Thank you, everyone.
Very good. Thank you.